The Meitei terrorist attacks on the Kuki people in in-depth analysis. The ongoing violence between the Meitei and Kuki communities in Manipur, India, has escalated to a point where the very existence of the Kuki people in the region is at stake. This conflict, driven by a mix of historical grievances, territorial disputes, and political manipulation, has led to widespread violence, loss of life, destruction of property, and mass displacement. The Meitei militants, aided by sophisticated weapons and support from various external actors, have unleashed a brutal campaign against the Kuki villages, with devastating consequences for the Kuki people. This article will explore the tactics used by Meitei militants, the role of the state and political parties, and the broader implications for the Kuki community in Manipur. Workouts using motor bombs, sophisticated weapons, and bombing Kuki villages. One of the most harrowing tactics used by the Meitei militants has been the use of motor bombs. These high-powered explosive devices are capable of inflicting heavy casualties and destruction across large areas. The attackers fire these bombs into Kuki villages, raining terror upon civilians. These indiscriminate bombings cause widespread damage to homes, schools, and markets, leaving entire villages in ruins. The use of such weapons, often designed for military engagements, highlights the scale of the assault on the Kuki population. The Meitei militants have also used an array of sophisticated weapons, far beyond the capabilities of the average civilian. Automatic firearms, rocket-propelled grenades, and even grenades have been deployed against unarmed civilians. The presence of such advanced weaponry in the hands of non-state actors raises serious concerns about how the Meitei militants have acquired these tools of war, suggesting the involvement of powerful external forces. These weapons are not just for defense, but part of a larger, coordinated campaign to terrorize the Kuki people into submission. 2. Bulletproof vehicles used to attack Kuki villages. In addition to the use of heavy weaponry, the Meitei militants have used bulletproof vehicles to conduct direct attacks on Kuki villages. These armored vehicles allow the attackers to move freely within Kuki areas while being protected from gunfire. The use of such vehicles enables the Meitei militants to strike with impunity, creating an asymmetric power dynamic between the well-equipped attackers and the vulnerable Kuki civilians. Though these armored vehicles are employed to breach Kuki villages quickly, strike at will, and then retreat without much resistance, this tactic leaves the Kuki population with little chance of defending themselves, as they are not equipped with the necessary resources to counter such advanced military technology. The presence of these vehicles also allows the attackers to target civilian infrastructure, including homes, markets, and public spaces, with minimal risk. 3. Destruction of Kuki properties using excavators, bombs, and more. Guammeli exchanges. The systematic destruction of Kuki properties has been another key strategy employed by the Meitei militants. Excavators and heavy machinery are being used to demolish Kuki homes, businesses, and public buildings. These machines tear down entire neighborhoods, leaving families without shelter or livelihood. The destruction is not limited to residential areas. Critical infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and markets is also targeted. The goal of this destruction is not only to inflict harm, but also to erase the presence of the Kuki people from the region and create space for the Meitei population. In addition to the use of excavators, militants have also employed bombs to destroy property. The use of explosives to level entire buildings and public facilities serves to instill fear and disrupt daily life in Kuki villages. This violent destruction is part of a broader strategy to break the spirit of the Kuki community, forcing them to either flee or face annihilation. The destruction is systematic and coordinated, suggesting a clear intent to eliminate Kuki presence in the area. 4. Involvement of Myanmar-based Meitei militants and Chinese-made weapons. The conflict in Manipur has been exacerbated by the involvement of Meitei militants based in Myanmar. These militants have established cross-border links with insurgent groups and have smuggled in sophisticated weaponry, including Chinese-made guns, bombs, and other military-grade equipment. The arrival of such weapons has made the violence much more deadly and difficult to counter for the Kuki community, who do not have access to comparable arms. The influx of Chinese-made weapons is particularly concerning because they are often more advanced and reliable than locally produced arms. This has led to a significant imbalance in the conflict, with the Meitei militants possessing far superior firepower. Moreover, the use of these weapons points to the involvement of foreign actors, further complicating the already volatile situation. In addition to the weapons, there have been reports of illegal satellite internet connections being used by Meitei militants, allowing them to coordinate attacks and avoid detection by the authorities. These technologies, allegedly facilitated by international networks with links to figures like Elon Musk, suggest that the violence is being fueled by external forces with a vested interest in the conflict. 5. The misuse of the term refugees to justify land grabbing. A disturbing aspect of the Meitei-led campaign of violence is the strategic use of language to frame the conflict. The term refugees is being applied to the Kuki people in an attempt to delegitimize their claims to the land. By labeling the Kuki community as refugees, the Meitei militants and their supporters are attempting to present them as outsiders with no legitimate right to the territory they have inhabited for generations. This deliberate distortion of the facts serves to justify the ongoing attacks and territorial encroachments by the Meitei population. The narrative of the Kuki people as refugees implies that they are mere intruders, and their presence in the region is an affront to the rightful landowners, the Meitei. By pushing this false narrative, the Meitei militants aim to gain support for their ancestral lands and undermine the Kuki people's right to live peacefully on their ancestral lands. 6. The role of state government machinery in supporting the attacks. The state government's role in the violence has been another critical factor. There have been numerous reports of the Meitei militants receiving support from local government machinery. In some instances, state police and military forces have failed to protect the Kuki population or have even been accused of actively supporting the Meitei militants in their attacks. This lack of action from the authorities has allowed the violence to continue unchecked, with Kuki civilians left to fend for themselves. The failure of the state to provide security or hold the perpetrators accountable has further fueled the sense of abandonment and betrayal within the Kuki community. The complicity of the state government has not only exacerbated the conflict, but has also contributed to the sense of insecurity and fear that pervades Kuki villages. 7. Political manipulation by Meitei leaders and political parties. The political discourse surrounding the conflict has also been manipulated to serve the interests of the Meitei militants. Meitei political leaders have worked to convince mainland Indian political parties that the violence is a legitimate response to Kuki aggressions. By presenting the Kuki people as the instigators of violence, they seek to justify the ongoing attacks and garner political support from influential figures and organizations in India. This political manipulation has allowed the Meitei militants to continue their attacks with the backing of powerful allies, both within and outside of the state. The narrative that the Kuki people are the aggressors has been used to garner resources and support for the Meitei cause, while delegitimizing the Kuki community's struggle for justice and peace. Conclusion: the need for a separate administration to protect Kuki lives. The ongoing violence in Manipur represents a grave threat to the Kuki people, whose lives, properties, and communities are under constant attack. The use of advanced weaponry, the systematic destruction of Kuki properties, the manipulation of political discourse, and the involvement of foreign actors all contribute to a situation where the Kuki people are left vulnerable and without protection. Given the scale of the violence and the failure of both the state government and national authorities to protect the Kuki community, the establishment of a separate administration for the Kuki people is a necessary and urgent step. A distinct administrative structure would ensure the safety and well-being of the Kuki minority in northeast India, providing them with the autonomy to protect their lands, preserve their culture, and live in peace. The Kuki people deserve the right to self-governance and the assurance that their rights and security will be upheld, free from the violence and persecution they currently face. They are also at risk of following a path that has not guaranteed them self-governance and the right to self-govern. A separate administration for the Kuki community is not just a solution to the immediate crisis, but a long-term step towards ensuring peace and stability in the region. It would offer the Kuki people the opportunity to rebuild their lives, restore their communities, and reclaim their place as a legitimate and equal part of India. The international community, along with the Indian government, must recognize the urgency of this issue and take decisive action to prevent further bloodshed and suffering. Disclaimer: the views expressed in this article are those of the writer and do not necessarily reflect the official position of any organization or government. The intention is to provide an in-depth analysis of the ongoing conflict. Subscribe to Zalengam Media for more updates on this developing story and to stay informed on the latest news.